Hi again, everybody. This is Lou White. I wanted to remind you all to Google Yahusha every day. It's very important. And today we're going to discuss real briefly a topic called obedience. A lot of people are trying to convince one another to believe, but even demons believe. Anyway, on part of a, ambassador CD that we distribute, we've got about 60-something articles, and it's growing each month or so. And this new article can be printed out on a PDF at any printer. We recommend Staples, the copy shop, and you can just email these as a PDF to your closest Staples copy shop. And on one piece of paper, most of the articles will fit. On a double-sided printing job, you can make one or you can make 1,000. And it folds in half and it becomes a 4-page article. I'll show you how that's done. Just get those corners up there really nicely lined up. And you have a little tract. It doesn't take a whole book to talk to somebody. This is the article called Obedience. And it's the outward evidence of who we serve. Let's see if you can read that. Let's see. Anyway, you don't really want to obey. The mind of the flesh doesn't really have the capacity to even desire to obey. So when you're Yahushified, let's see if we can get that word in there. Yeah. Oh, Yahushified. See, there he is. Then the rest of the gang, they don't understand why you don't run with them in the ways that you used to, Something's happened to you. Now, in fact, your relatives will be the first one to notice. Anyway, these articles, a person can just, like for 15 cents, you can share with something with someone that will absolutely change their lives. And there's the second page right there, and there's the third page. It talks about prayer and conversation with Yahuah, and then the back page. And we're really commanded to teach them the commandments if you put them in the proper context. See, a lot of people think that the old covenant has passed away, and yet it's explained that the old covenant that was growing old and becoming obsolete was the Aharonic covenant, the animal sacrifices, the law of sin and death. It had nothing to do with the commandments that define sin. First John 3 verse 4 says that sin is lawlessness. He didn't take away sin. Take away the commandments. He removed the penalty for sin, which was death, requiring animal sacrifices that had to keep getting repeated. And the whole priesthood was basically inadequate because the high priest would die and animal blood could not permanently cover and remove sins or crimes. So what was really passing away was the Aharonic covenant. That was the old covenant that was passing away. Hebrews talks about it. And Paul is misunderstood in Galatians. People read Galatians and they go, oh yeah, it's over. It says that Mashiach is the goal of the Torah. And he's our target. He is the one that we're following. And yet we're taught to not obey anything. I remember, I went to this Christian circus. Oh, I don't know, 1985, 1984, somewhere in there. And I attended for about a year, and I was just drinking it up and trying to figure out why they wanted us to read this book and study it diligently on our own. And yet, I saw nothing but arguments in there about the footnotes saying, you don't have to do this. This was the Old Testament, the Old Covenant. But the writers of the footnotes didn't understand that you can't argue with texts that say forever. And this is a law forever. And then when you understand, because I read the preface and it says they removed his name. And I understood from going to the university where I researched in the library alphabets and research materials that showed the name was written in 4 Hebrew letters, script, that were called vowels. And we inherited vowels from them. So did the Greeks and the Latin alphabet. We inherited everything from the Hebrew. And these vowels that they discussed, that were the name of Yahuah in 4 letters, in the preface of an NIV that I happen to be reading, that they had removed it and replaced it with a traditional device. And it was inherited from the fathers before, where they inherited the policy or pattern of replacing that name, Yahuah, Yod, He, Uah, He, which is essentially a Y and an H and a U and an H. Not a double U, but a U. And they did this very early on. The Hebrew used the word Adonai, which means Lord in our language, English. And then it went into Greek and it became the word Kyrios, which means Lord. Then in the Latin, coming from the Greek, it became Dominus, which means Lord. And then it went into the King James Version in the English, from the Dominus, which the Latin Vulgate was used as the basis for that, because the Anglican Catholics that translated from the Latin were using the Latin Vulgate, which is a 1,200 plus year Catholic transcription that was done by a fellow that they call Jerome. But there's nobody named J-E-S-U-S in those texts. In the first edition of the King James, they brought across the letters I-E-S-V, which was the Latin shape for you, Isu, for the name of the Mashiach. And the name of Yahuah was just not there. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Wait, it says Yahuah is my shepherd in the Hebrew. I mean, that's what it means. It doesn't say the Lord. It doesn't say Kyrios. It doesn't say Dominus. And it doesn't say Adonai. See, these are tricks that were used. In the last days, we're going to have to call on the name. And those that are sealed will not burn on the fiery day, the day of Yahuah, when everybody's equalized. The prophet Zechariah, I think it's Yeshayahu or Isaiah chapter 24, Matthew or Matthew chapter 24 also. Yahuah, they call Joel, in chapter 2, talks about the reapers coming. And before them is like the Garden of Eden, but behind them a flame burns. Everything's consumed. And this is, studied in, if you read Acts 17, the judgment, the day of judgment is coming. And I think we'd all agree that these floods and hurricanes and storms and earthquakes and volcanoes and fires that are burning up the world are just signals that we are off course. And I just wanted to leave that with you real briefly. But you can order these. Over 60 are available for free if you download these individually through our website, torazone.net. And there's many more. I only have that one here with me, but you know. Oh, here's one. They're all the same format, but you can get 4 pages on one sheet of paper. This is an article Phyllis and I did on camera called Valentine's Day a while back. You know, what's wrong with Valentine's Day? You know, well, it'll explain it to you. Oh, here's one that I love. This is a study. It's like I say, one piece of paper, one little piece of paper, printed on both sides, costs about 15 cents. Depends on how many you get, of course. The more you get, the less you have to pay per copy. But it's a whole lot cheaper than handing somebody a whole book that you had to pay for. But this article is called The Real Name. Transliterations. And that's page 1, page 2, and it shows you some of these fonts where in some of the King James Strong's is based on the King James. And you see the Hebrew down here. A lot of it is, the Hebrew is up here. This is real Hebrew, right up here. And then over here on the other side is actually Aramaic. But people still call this Hebrew, but it's modern Hebrew they call it. But this is the Hebrew. The Hebrew is this, you know. Anyway, then there's the mythology about the word Shah and Shua. People can't just hear the word Shua and say, I looked it up and it says Canaanite, or it says this and that. It means about 3 or 4 things, but it depends on the context of what you apply. And the name Elisha, the Sheen Ayin at the end is Shah. And it's okay. You know, it means deliverance or deliverer. And but you just don't jump into the concordance and look up a dictionary definition and then apply the wrong one based on the, you know, just the fact that you looked it up and you said it means chaos or it means destruction or whatever it means. You're misapplying a definition, ignoring the context that it's used in. A word can sound the same, be spelled the same, and have completely different meanings. It's true of our language too. Anyway, if you want to learn some more things about how to understand the real Hebrew script and how it sounds and without the Masoretic corruptions and alterations, you can study that, a lot of that through our website. I have a website called fossilizedcustoms.com and torazone.net, and a lot of materials can be ordered on Amazon.com if you look up Lou White's books. But it's just research. I've been doing this for over 30 years, and it isn't the time that matters. It's not how long somebody studies. It's a matter of studying it with the mind of Yahuah and knowing His name and loving His commandments. And the more you practice His commandments, the more you understand His mind and His opinion. So anyway, we've been into this going on 13 minutes. And I'm sorry I went over a little. I try to keep them around 10. But thanks for watching. And we'll talk to you again. Please like and share this if you would. We'll talk to you again next time. Bye-bye.